All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So if everyone can turn on their cameras one more time, that would be great. Awesome. So welcome to our high school literature class. Today, for the next hour-ish, we're going to be reading a short text called Tom's Husband. And like I said, it involves gender norms, the jobs of men and women. But when the wife gets a job, she upsets the traditional norms. And then afterwards, we're going to do some questions, vocabulary key terms. This is where we're going to talk about vocabulary terms we may not have heard of, define them, make sentences. Over here, we're going to talk about themes, important plot development, character analysis. And then if we have time, I may ask some of you, what's your favorite, what did you like, what did you didn't like, and why? So let's start without further ado. Okay. So if everyone can please turn on their camera one more time, and I'm not going to ask again. Everyone, cameras on. Yo-Yo, cameras on, please. Ellen, very good, very good. Okay, Yo-Yo, let's see. You're our youngest student here. So Yo-Yo, can you please start off with the first short paragraph? Yo-Yo, you have to unmute yourself.
Tom's Husband.
That's right. So,
1882 by Sarah Orne Jewett.
That's right.
I shall not dwell long upon the circumstances that led to the marriage of my hero and heroine, though their courtship was to them the only one that has ever noticeably approached the ideal. It had many aspects in which it was entirely commonplace in other people's eyes. While the world in general smiles at lovers with kindly approval and sympathy, it refuses to be aware of the unprecedented delight which is amazing to the lovers themselves.
Very good work, Yo-Yo. I'm impressed for very good work for someone as young as you, but and can read this very good. Helen, do you want to tackle the next half of paragraph?
Okay. But as has been true in many other cases, when they were at last married, the most ideal of situations was found to have been changed to the most practical. Instead of having shared their original duties, and as schoolboys would say, going halves, they discovered that the cares of life had been doubled. This led to some distressing moment for both our friends. They understood suddenly that instead of dwelling in heaven, they were still upon earth, and had made themselves slaves to new laws and limitations. Instead of being freer and happier than ever before, they had assumed new responsibilities. They had established a new household and must fulfill in some way or another the obligations of it.
Very good, Helen. So Helen, my question for you is, our young couple, our young protagonist, Tom and Helen, are a young couple when they get married. How does their marriage change, or what suddenly changes within marriage life for them?
They need to take care of two people instead of one.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay, and what else changes for them? So they have to take care of two instead of one. Can you give one more other example?
And they will be stressed.
Yeah, very good. So we see when they enter married life, there's new responsibilities, job, household, very stressful. And we see that instead of focusing on themselves, they now have to take care of each other. Very good. Let's see here. Eliza, very good. Where's Jack? Jack, are you here? No. Okay. Elsa, Eliza?
Elise.
Elise, very. Would you like to finish this part of the paragraph? So they have.
They looked back with affections to their engagement. They had been lying to have each other to themselves, apart from the world, but it seemed that they never felt so keenly that they were still units in modern society. Since Adam and Eve were in paradise before the devil joined them, nobody has had a chance to imitate that unlucky couple. In some respect, they told the truth when 20 times a day they said that life had never been so pleasant before. But were mental reservations on either side which might have subjected them to the accusation of lying. Somehow there was a little feeling of disappointment, and they caught themselves wondering, thought they would never die sooner than confess it, whether they were quite so happy as they had expected.
So, Elise, why do you think this happily married couple are suddenly feeling disappointed in their marriage?
Is it because of like lying?
So why do you think, so when I say why do you think, it's more of an opinion-based question where there's no right or wrong answer. It's based on what we know so far. So why do you think they're feeling disappointed?
Maybe they're like they're sick of each other, or maybe like they had like troubles. They have trouble like communicating with each other.
That's a very good speculation. Now once they broke the honeymoon stage of their marriage, now all of a sudden the problems are starting to arise. Very good. Yo-Yo, do you want to go ahead and finish up this section? Yo-Yo?
Here?
Yes, the truth was
they were much happier than people usually are, for they had an uncommon capacity for enjoyment. For a little while, they were like a sailboat that is beating and has to drift a few minutes before it can catch the wind and start off on another tack. And they had the same feeling too, that anyone is likely to have who has been long pursuing some object of his ambition or desire, whether it's a coin or picture or a stray volume of some old edition of Shakespeare, or whether it is an office under government or lover or fairly in one class that is a loss of the eagerness that was felt in pursuit. Satisfaction, even after one had dined well, is not so interesting and eager a feeling as hunger.
very good, very good. All right, Yo-Yo, can you just finish up? I just want to get you to answer a question, but for me to do that, I just needed you to finish this one last section, and then we'll move on.
My hero and heroine was reasonably well established to begin with. They each had some money, though Mr. Wilson had most. His father had at one time been a rich man, but with the decline a few years before of manufacturing interest, he had become, mostly through the fault of others, somewhat involved, and at the time of his death, his affairs were in such a condition that it was so a question whether a very large sum or moderately large one would represent his estate.
Very good. So Yo-Yo, my question for you is our first hero, Mr. Wilson. What was his father like? So what was Mr.
His father has lots of money.
Very good. His father had lots of money. But what was he like as a father to Tom?
Can you say the question again?
So we said that Mr. Wilson's father was rich, he had lots of money, but what was he like as a father to Tom?
His father to
Yeah,
Tom?
was he a good father to Tom, or was he a bad father?
Let me make you co-host so that you can share your screen.
Oh, thank you, Cody.
You can enter the breakout room now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good answer. So we see that he's a complex man, that on one hand, he's rich, and on the other hand, for example, through the fall of others, he's somewhat involved. We see that he's not always there, so he's a very complex character. Very good. Elise, Mrs. Wilson.
Mrs. Wilson, Tom's stepmother, was somewhat of an invalid. She suffered severely at times with asthma, but she was almost entirely relieved by living in another part of the country. While her husband lived, she had accepted her illness as inevitable and rarely left home. But during the last few years she had lived in Philadelphia with her own people, making short and wheezing visits only from time to time, and had not undergone a voluntary period or suffering since the occasion of Tom's marriage, which she had entirely approved.
Do you want to finish up this last half and then we'll do some vocabulary? So she had a sufficient property of her own, and she and Tom were independent of each other in that way. Her only other stepchild was a daughter who had married a Navy officer, and had at this time gone out to spend 3 years with her husband, who had been ordered to Japan. Very good. So Elise, what we were learning about Mr. Wilson, how he came from money, he was a successful businessman. What kind of person was Mrs. Wilson, Tom's mother? So what kind of person was Mrs. Wilson? So what does she suffer from? What kind of medical condition did Mrs. Wilson suffer from?
Oh, I was me. Okay. So she had asthma, and she's like a really independent woman.
That's right. So she's very independent, and she has asthma, and that's why she sometimes gone AWOL from her marriage with Tom, which she apparently approved. So let's go over our first vocabulary term, which I think it's a good one. You use it, it's quite a bit in literature, inevitable. So this is what we do. So let's go to our sheet. Okay, so inevitable, I think, is a good term to use. So let me get the text. Inevitable, we'll do a sentence, and then we'll do a definition. So inevitable, INVITABLIN, EVITABLE, inevitable, and then I'm going to write the quick definition. Inevitable means certain to happen, or it's certain to happen / unavoidable / unavoidable. So this is the definition of inevitable. So it's going to happen no matter what. It's certain, it's bound to happen. And now I'm going to give a sentence for the key term, inevitable. And my sentence is, World War I was inevitable. You don't need to know the history of it. You just need to know it was bound to happen. So first key term is inevitable. It's bound to happen. It's going to happen no matter what. So World War I was inevitable. Or let's do something more recent. Let's talk about school. School is inevitable because school's going to happen. So let's start off with some sentences. Let's see. Can everyone please turn on their camera? Please. I don't want to ask one more time. It's just great interaction. Helen, what's your sentence for inevitable?
Injecting vaccines are inevitable.
Very good. Elise, what's your sentence for inevitable? You're on mute, Elise. You have to unmute yourself.
Attending school is inevitable, right?
And attending school is inevitable because it's mandatory. Very good. And Yo-Yo, what's your sentence for inevitable?
Inevitable?
That's right. What's your sentence? So inevitable means something's going to happen no matter what. It's unavoidable. What is your sentence?
My sentence for inevitable is compromise is an inevitable part of life.
Compromise is an inevitable part of life. Sometimes you have to make sacrifice, or sometimes you have to make arrangements with people. It's just a part of life. Very good, very good. Okay, let's clear this and let's keep going. All right. So Helen, you haven't read in a bit, so I will give you. Can you please read up to here? It is not unfortunate. It is not unfrequently.
It is not unfrequently noticed that in many marriages, one of the persons who choose each other as partners for life is said to have thrown himself or herself away, and the relatives and friends look on with dismal foreboding and ill-concealed submissions. In this case, it was the wife who might have done so much better, according to public opinion. She did not think so herself, likely, either before marriage or afterward, and I do not think it occurred to her to picture to herself the sort of career which would have been her alternative. She had been an only child and had usually taken her own way. Someone once said that it was a great pity that she had not been obliged to work for her living, for she had inherited a most uncommon business talent, and without being reputably keen on a bargain, her insight into the practical working for affairs was very clear and far-reaching.
Very good, very good. Very good. So my question for you, Helen, is our next protagonist. So we have Tom, and then we have his wife. What kind of woman is she? Is she an independent woman? Does she rely on her husband? Does she do what she wants? What kind of woman is our next protagonist?
I think she is an independent woman, and she had a great talent on business, but it was ruined by her marriage.
That's right. So Tom's wife, she's very independent. She does what she wants, and she's actually very smart. She runs a business. So I want to do very good job, everyone. I want to do another key term. This is going to be a second one. We may do one more because I want to do more reading. So forebodings. So we're going to define it. Looks like we have some more people here. So I'm just going to go say hello. Hello, Brian. Thank you for joining the class.
Foreboding.
So the key term is foreboding. So I'm going to go back to my, gotta close this. I'm going to go back to my chart. I'm going to clear this. Brian, if you can turn on your camera, that would be great. So let's get my text. So this is probably going to be our second. We'll probably do one more, but closer toward the end. So foreboding is our key term. Foreboding means like a feeling. So it's like a fearful sense or a fearful apparition. So fearful apparition or a feeling that something bad might happen. So we have foreboding. So it's like a fearful apparition or something, or you get that feeling or sense that something bad might happen. So my sentence is with a sense of foreboding. She read the note. So let's put it all together. Foreboding means it has two examples. It means either to be scared or to have a fearful apparition, or you have a gut feeling or feeling that something might bad happen. So I decided to go for the fearful definition. So with a sense of foreboding, she read the note, or with a sense of fear, she read the note. Yo-Yo, what's your sentence for foreboding?
My sentence for foreboding is she had a foreboding that he might have an accident.
Yeah, she had a foreboding that he might have an accident, or she had this feeling that he might have an accident. Elise, what's your sentence for foreboding? You're on mute, Elise.
As I walked towards the gloomy castle, a sense of foreboding filled me.
So you went for the fearful definition. As you walk past by the gloomy household, you get that feeling or a feeling of a boredom sense before me. So you were very fearful, very scared. Helen, what's your sentence for foreboding?
Well, he had a sense of foreboding that he might fail the test.
Very good. So you had a sense of foreboding that you may fail the test or a bad feeling. And Mr. Brian, what's your sentence for foreboding? Brian.
He had a foreboding thought for the future.
Yeah, he had a foreboding thought for the future. Very good, very good. All right, good job. So let's okay. So Brian, welcome to the class. I know you joined a little bit late, but I'm just going to quickly bring you up to speed. So this story is about gender roles, and it takes place in the 1950s and 60s, and it's between a husband and a wife, and it's about a woman wanting to work, but the husband is against it, and we see a very independent, fierce woman standing up to her controlling husband. So Brian, so everyone else has read once. I want to give you a chance. So Brian, I'll tell you when to stop. I'll have you probably go for a while. So her father,
who had also been a manufacturer like Tom's, had often said it had been a mistake that she was a girl instead of a boy. Such executive ability as hers is often wasted in the more contracted sphere of women, and it's apt to be more disadvantaged than helped. She was too independent and self-reliant for a wife. It would seem at first thought that she needed a wife herself more than she did a husband. More men like best the women whose natures cling and appeal to theirs for protection. But Tom Wilson, while he did not wish to be protected himself, liked these very qualities in his wife, which would have displeased some other men to tell the truth.
I'll have you go up to here. He was
very much in love with his wife, just as she was. He was a successful collector of almost everything but money, and during a great part of his life, he had been an invalid, confessed, very old womanish, invalid, and he had grown, as he laughingly confessed, very old woman. He had been badly lamed when a boy by being caught in some machinery in his father's mill, near which he was idling one afternoon. and though he had almost entirely outgrown the effect of his injury.
Very good. So Brian, good reading. I'm going to ask you two questions because I want to bring up the speed. My first question is, how does Tom feel about his wife?
He was very much in love with his wife.
Yes, he cares about his wife, and that's the second. That's what we read in the second part. And what kind of woman? I'll scroll back down. And what kind of woman is his wife? You know, what kind of woman is Mrs. Wilson?
He was too independent and self-reliant wife.
That's right. So she's very, like, we've read this before, but I think you just came now. So she's very independent. She takes her own path. Nobody tells her what to do. And I think you missed out on this, but I'll just inform you. She actually ran a successful business. So she's a businesswoman. She has the mind of an executive, the mind of a business person, of a businesswoman. Very good. All right, so I'm just going to make this a rule. When you read, you have to turn on your camera. So so when I call you out, just turn on your camera and then you can shut it off after, because it's just better class interaction. So so let's see, Elisa's read, Brian's read. Helen, he had been.
He had been in college, but his eyes had given out theory, and he had been obliged to leave in the middle of his junior year. Though he had kept up a pleasant intercourse with the members of his class, with whom he had been a great favorite, he was a good deal of an idler in the world. I do not think his ambition, except in the case of securing married Jan for his wife, had ever been distinct. He seemed to make the most he could have each day at camp, without making all his days' walks tend toward some grand result, and go toward the upbuilding of some grand plan and purpose. He consequently gave no promise of being either distinguished or great. When his eyes would follow, he was an indefatigable reader, and although he would have said that he read only for amusement, and he assumed himself with books that were well worth the time he spent over them.
Very good. So I think this is going to be our last key term, and the key term is
indefatigable.
And the key term is indefatigable. So let me, good job, Helen, thank you. So so the key term is indefatigable, and I promise you I won't bombard you with any more vocabulary. So let's do it one more time, and then we'll just if we can get through one more page of all of us reading and doing one more question, I'm happy. So the key term is indefatigable. I-N, so I-N-D-E-F-A-T-I-G-A-I-G-A-B-L-E, indefatigable. Indefatigable means, tireless, persisting, untiring. So indefatigable means, if you're persistent, you're tireless, you're untiring, you don't give up. So my sentence is, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an indefatigable defender of human rights. D-F-A-T-I-G. So indefatigable, so let's put it all together. Indefatigable means tireless, pursuing, never give up, you're persistent, you're stubborn. My sentence is Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an indefatigable defender of human rights. I'm supposed to put, that are supposed to be a key term. Brian, let's start off with you because you came quite late. What's your sentence for indefatigable?
I should try to be an indefatigable, improved person in studying.
Excellent, excellent. Elise, what's your sentence for indefatigable?
After losing her son in a car accident, she became an indefatigable promoter of teen driver training.
Yeah, after losing a car in an accident, she became an indefatigable star of driving. Very good. Yo-Yo, what's your sentence for indefatigable?
My sentence using indefatigable.
Indefatigable. Yes, that means you never give up. You're persistent. You're strong. You're tired. You're untiring. So, what is your sentence, Yo-Yo?
Wait, I'll see this word. Indefatigable.
Good. We'll practice it, but very good first attempt.
Indefatigable.
Indefatigable.
Maybe last week. Nope. His indefatigable spirit helped him to cope with his illness.
Yeah, his indefatigable spirit helped him to cope with his spirit or with his illness, or his never tireless spirit helped him to deal with the illness. And finally, Helen, what's your sentence for indefatigable?
My classmate told me he was indefatigable in playing video games, but he was not when he was trying to remember these words from the textbooks.
Like your classmate was indefatigable when playing video games. Very good. So he was very persistent when playing video games, but quite different when it came to, for example, schoolwork. Very good. Any questions, anybody, about what's happening in the story? It's just more about we're still at the part where they're introducing the characters, but it's important for the plot and development. So I think we can go over here. We've read enough about Mr. and Mrs. Wilson. So let's talk about Mrs. Wilson, our first character. So Elise, what kind of person is Mrs. Wilson?
Is it Tom's wife?
That's right. So Tom's wife is Mrs. Wilson. What kind of person is she so far?
So she is an independent woman, like businesswoman.
Very independent. Good. Okay. Anything else we can use to describe Tom's wife?
She has asthma.
Asthma. Okay. I think that was Tom's mother. Tom's mother had asthma. What about, besides being independent, like what are some of her qualities? What is she like? What are some of her qualities that she uses to exercise her independence?
I'm not really sure.
That's okay. Helen, we said that Mrs. Wilson is very independent. What are some other examples we can use to describe Mrs. Wilson?
She is really smart and she is doing good at business.
Smart. That's what I wanted to hear. Very good. So business, smart, I'll just put business smart. Very good, Helen. That's what I was hoping for. So we see Mrs. Wilson is independent. We see that she's very smart at business and she does what she wants to do. Yo-Yo, I know we haven't read a lot about Mr. Wilson to describe his character, but what kind of man is he in his marriage, or what is he like towards his wife, Mr. Wilson, or Tom?
Can you say it again?
So we were talking about Mrs. Wilson, and we said that Mrs. Wilson is she's a businesswoman. She's smart. What kind of man is Mr. Wilson? What is he like?
Mr. Wilson is rich.
Yes, so he comes from money, so rich. And very good. And how does he's rich, so because his father was rich. And how does he feel about his wife?
He feels his wife is a great person.
Yeah, so we can say adores his wife. Very good. So we have two very different people. We see one person who's very much more emotional with Mr. Wilson, as he loves his wife, and whereas Mrs. Wilson, I'm sure she loves her husband. She's much more logical, much more independent. Very good work, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to clear this, or else it's just going to lap onto the next page. All right, I think we've done enough for this, and let's just try to do one or half a page to one more page. Okay, let's start off from the top. So, Yo-Yo, you're up. The house.
Can you make it bigger?
Sorry, the house where he lived nominally.
The house where he lived normally belonged to his stepmother, but she had taken for granted that Tom would bring his wife home to it and assured him that it should be all intents and purposes his. Tom was deeply attached to the old place, which was altogether in the pleasantness in town. He had kept bachelors all there most of the time since his father's death. He had to take great pleasure before his marriage in refitting it to some extent, though it was ready, comfortable, and furnished in remarkably good taste. People said of him that if it had not been for his illnesses, and if he had been a poor boy, he probably would have made something of himself. As it was, he was not very known by the townspeople, being somewhat reserved and not taking much interest in their everyday subjects of conversation. Nobody liked him so well as he liked her. They liked his wife, yet there was no reason why he should be disliked enough to have much said about him.
Very good. So Yo-Yo, good reading. So Yo-Yo, why do the townspeople not like Tom? Why do they not like him?
Because he did not fought for something that he was himself.
Very good, very good. Yeah, so very good. The townspeople do not like him because he doesn't take an interest into their, daily lives and activities, and he's too much reserved, reserved. Very good. Elise, I'll give you update this half a paragraph after.
After our friend had been married for some time and had outlived the first strangeness of the new order of things, and had done their duty to their neighbors with so much apparent willingness and generosity that even Tom himself was liked a great deal better than he ever had been before. They were sitting together one stormy evening in the library before the fire. Mrs. Wilson had been reading Tom the letters which had come to him by the night's mail. There was a long one from his sister in Nagasaki, which had been written with a good deal of disguised reproach. She complained of the smallness of the income of her share in her father's estate, and said that she had been assured by the American friends that the smaller mills were starting up everywhere and beginning to do well again.
Very good, very good. Brian, do you want to finish up this section?
Since so much of their money was invested in the factory, he had been surprised and sorry to find Tom's last letters that he had seemed to have no idea of putting the proper person as superintendent. And going to work again, 4% of her other property, which she had been told she must soon expect instead of 8, would make a great difference. A Navy captain in a foreign port was obliged to entertain a great deal, and Tom must know that it cost them much, more to live than it did to him, and ought to think of their interest. He hoped he would talk over what was best to be done with their money, who had been made executor with Tom of his father's will.
Very good. So Brian, how did Mrs. Wilson inherit the factory, or the factory that she's going to work in? How does she get that?
From
How does she inherit the factory?
From her ancestor? From her mother?
Yeah, she inherited from her sister, and it was actually her sister talking about, for example, so she inherits the factory from her sister in Nagasaki. And the sister, as we read about, talks about, her father's estate, and she talks about the little lack of income being invested into the factory, and now so she wants to get her sister aboard to make the factory very profitable, to make the factory very successful again. Any questions so far? Okay, so I think I'm going to stop here because we're almost out of time, and I just want to show you the high school literature. So this is our high school literature. This is our outline, or where we talk about some of the things. We train your critical skills, critical thinking, analytical skills, ability to write, interpreting, analyzing, gathering evidence, explaining what the evidence means. So this is just our outline. We look at other stories from here. So it was actually, this class was very successful with my students who I just recently finished. And let me just show you. So for example, this is it. If you were to join us, you would get access to the Google Drive. This is, teacher's material. This is, what we were looking at today, the PDF, class outline. This is, if you choose to join the class, this is where you will submit your homework. And if the homework is obviously due before the class, I mark it, give comments, tell you where you did well, where you need to improve. And this is class handout. This is all where you'll find, for example, all the homework and stories. So I just want to show you, we do look at a variety of themes. We look at science fiction, comedy, time travel, adventure, and trust me, the students I had really enjoyed some of these stories. So for example, we looked at for example, I'm just going to pull up from August 5th. We looked at one story called The Sniper, which was a militarized story, which the students really enjoyed. Another, I'll just do a couple more. Another one was called The Hanging Stranger. This one was more of a mystery alien story where aliens take over the town. I guess I'll do one more. The Most Dangerous Game, I think, was the most popular one with the students. It kept them on the edge of their seats. They wanted to find out what happened, and I've never seen students who did not want to have a break. So I have a feeling I chose a good story for that day. I highly recommend you to join the class where we'll read all these other genres. We'll probably look at some of these stories that I was just showing you. We'll do more vocabulary, key terms. We'll have fun. We'll have some good discussions, and we'll have some good writing exercises. Thank you very much, and I hope you all sign up for Mentors or for the writing class. You're no problem, Brian. Before we go, does any of you have any questions? I think we're waiting for Michael. Any questions about the class or any specific